Good morning, everyone. We'll give everybody just a minute or two to sign on before we go ahead and get started today. Thank you for joining us. Give us just another minute to allow everybody else to sign in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Vendor Pre-Proposal Conference for Emergency Preparedness, Disaster Recovery, Information Technology, Products and Related Services, RFO DIR-CPO-TMP-595. We are glad to have you with us today. Before we get started, let's cover a couple housekeeping items. Just a reminder that you can change your audio by switching between computer and phone. We want to remind everybody that everybody is muted this morning, but if you have questions or if you have something to address with the group, please open your Q&A box and put your questions in there and we'll make time to answer those as we go today. But before we get started, if you would, please raise your hands real quick and let us know that you can hear us pretty clearly this morning so we have a good audio connection. All right, thank you for that. Also, we will be making a handout available after the webinar ends. These are going to be the speakers today. We have Stephanie Harrison, Cooperative Contracts Director, Vanya Raymakers, Procurement Lead, Moshe Thomas, Procurement Lead, Teresa Williamson, Hub Program Manager, Marie Cohen, Statewide Digital Accessibility Officer. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Moshe.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moshe Thomas. I'm one of the procurement lead here at DIR. I'm also your contact person for this RFO 595. That's how we abbreviate it. So this morning in the agenda, it's going to be a pretty full agenda. And there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be thrown at you. So I'll suggest that you have your RFO document, which was part of your package, in front of you. So as we go through these sections, you know exactly where we are, what we are talking about. And it'll also help you when you have a question, so you know exactly which section of the RFO we are looking at, so we can better understand where to look for the answer set. Okay. So the agenda this morning is preloaded. We're going to be looking at the RFO itself. We're going to overview it. We're going to look at the contents and the scope of the RFO. We're going to be looking at some evaluation criteria. These are the criteria that we use to look at your response, to evaluate your responses. We're also going to be looking at terms of the contracts, schedule of events, what's going to be happening going forward. And we'll have one of my colleagues give you an idea what the hub requirements are for this RFO. And we have another colleague of mine to take you through the pricing sheet of the RFO, which is very, very important. So make sure you pay attention to that. And we'll have another colleague of mine to give us some information on digital accessibility for this RFO. At one point, I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about some general information that you're going to need. And we'll look at some VIS, or the Vendor Information System. This is the system that you're going to need and use to to respond to this RFO. Okay, and we'll do some mandatory submission information, give it to you what you need to submit, and at that point in time, we'll take a break about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and entertain some of the questions that you may have for the team. And after that, we'll close out the conference. All right. All right, let's jump right into it. All right, that's a way of an overview of this RFO. Really, the purpose here is to solicit responses from you, the vendor community, to provide products and services for emergency preparedness, disaster recovery information technology products, and related services. And this will be done through us. Just 1 second. And DIR may award multiple awards from this RFO. This is a subsequent procurement from DIR 443. Some of you may have responded to this RFO before. This was a combined RFO which has law enforcement products and services on it. Also, we have some emergency preparedness product related on this. However, the decision was made recently to separate the two. So this morning, we are making a presentation on only emergency preparedness RFO, okay? So if you are sitting on this conference and maybe you think it's law enforcement because you thought it was before and it is this time, no, it is not. It is separate. As a matter of fact, there's an RFO which has already been posted on ESBD, which is specific for law enforcement. So if that's what you are thinking you're soliciting for, there's an RFO for you, not this one, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. Next slide, please, Patty. Thank you. All right, let's take a look at some historical sales from our cooperative contract program as a whole. Now, this is a really popular program, as you can see by the sales. And if you look on the left side, there's some of the organizations that we serve. We talk about assistant organization, higher ed, K through 12, local government, even some out of state, they use our contract to do their business in their states. And of course, Texas state agencies, they use a whole lot of our contracts to procure their services and products. Now, in terms of the sales themselves, 2022 was a pretty good year. We have sales in excess of $3 billion. That's pretty decent. And the following year, we actually went even higher, sales in excess of 3.31, and the latest sales number that we have from 2024 in excess of 3.417. So in terms of the sales themselves, this program is very good, and we like to keep it that way. As you can see, the numbers are trending upwards. So that's where we are headed. If you look at the bottom table there, these are RFO specific numbers. So for these numbers, they refer specifically to 4413, RFO 4413 that I just talked about a minute ago. Now, the numbers there are also just as impressive. We're looking at financial year 2022 at about 37 million in that year. And the following year, 2023, we even went much, much higher at number of $5.439 million. And the latest sale that we have for that particular RFO, 57.57. So as you can tell, just looking at these numbers, this RFO is pretty good, and we expect the numbers to go even higher. Okay. Next slide, please. Let's take a quick look at the RFO content itself. Now, it's a big package, as you can tell. And the main document is the one that's right on top, the RFO DIR-CPO-TMP-595. Sorry about that. And there's a bunch of attachment that goes with it and a bunch of exhibit as well. So let's look at them one by one. And by the way, as we go through the slides, we'll take a deeper look at each and every one of these attachments. So just for now, just to kind of call them out before we take a deeper dive on them, we have our cooperative contract, which is just a sample, give you an idea what you're going to have if you're lucky enough to get one of those contracts. And attachment number 2 is our standard contract terms and conditions. Again, that's just a sample of what you're going to be looking at as in terms of the T's and C that govern those contracts that we'll be awarding. And then we have a lot of exhibits as well, all the way from A all the way to K. And again, we'll get into details a little later on, but suffice to say, we have Exhibit A, which is a response certification form. This is the information that you sent to us. So we know exactly who you are, what you do, and what you're going to be offering. And we have an Exhibit A1, which is an exception table. And this one, if you were to take exceptions to our terms and conditions, you will use this form to do that. And even if you're not taking exceptions necessarily, you can still write on the face of the form and say, we're not taking exceptions to any of the terms and conditions, okay? And we have Exhibit B, which will be your history and experience of your company. You telling us what you do so we can evaluate you appropriately. Exhibit C is your marketing and customer support plan that you're going to tell us about how you're going to be doing that for our customers. Exhibit D will be a hub subcontracting plan, sometimes called HSP, that is required to be submitted as well. Exhibit E will be the itemizing pricing sheet. It's a spreadsheet that you need to use, a specific spreadsheet, not your company spreadsheet, but a specific spreadsheet that my colleague Vanya will go through it in details a little later on, okay? Then we have Exhibit F. These are the references form. This will be coming from your referees, the company that you have served, who will be sending in a reference on your behalf. So you don't send in the forms yourself. You let them know that they need to send it in through the special email that we have. Next slide, please. Thank you. And continue with our exhibit here, we have Exhibit G, which is a respondent's liability, release of liability. Now, this is you telling us that your references will be sent information on your behalf, okay? So you're just releasing that information, that liability release. And Exhibit H is one of our federal requirements that you need to fill out and set it in. And Exhibit I through K, those are these will be our accessibility forms. Then Marie will be here a little later on to talk a little bit on those, and those also are required to be submitted. All right. Next slide, please. All right, in terms of the content of the RFO itself, next slide. So we're going to take a little deeper dive on these contents of the RFO. Let's start with the two attachment. The first one, attachment number 1, is just a sample contract. So we give you an idea what you'll be looking at when you get the actual contract eventually. And the same thing with attachment B, attachment 2, it's a copy of our standard terms and conditions. So by the time you get all the paperwork in, you know exactly what will be governing that contract from the terms and conditions standard view. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So like I said, we're going to take a little deeper dive on all those exhibits, starting with Exhibit A. Okay, now this is your respondent information. This is what you give to us. Now, the big thing about this exhibit is if it's not completed and it's not signed, you'll be disqualified. So whatever it is that you want to do, make sure that this is signed, and we can move to the next exhibit and we can come in as a vendor for DIR. But this one is very, very important. So this form must be filled out in its entirety and signed by an officer or an agent empowered to contractually bind the respondent. In other words, someone who has enough authority within your organizations to sign this. Not everyone can sign it, only those who can sign the contract on behalf of your company. Now you have to complete cancel contract references if you have any available. That'll go with Exhibit A as well. Exhibit A1, this is an exception form. Earlier I said you can take exceptions to some terms of condition if you want. If you want a language to be changed, you can negotiate those. But you have to tell us what is it that you are taking exceptions to. And this is the form that needs to be used. So you will list all the exceptions that you want to take. And also you list all the language that you want to be changed, if that's what you want, and we'll take it from there. But, and this is a big but, if you look at the bottom, it says caution. So if you are to take exceptions, you have to make sure that they are not excessive. And what does that mean? That means if your exceptions are so massive to a point whereby the negotiation gets stalled and we cannot really reach any agreement, DIR may just make a decision that, well, we're not going to be going further with this negotiation. At that point in time, we stop everything. So whatever you do, whatever how many exceptions you planning on taking, just make sure that they don't bog down the system to a point whereby we cannot move further. Okay, that's just a cautionary. If you believe you need to take your exceptions, by all means do, but just have that in the back of your mind that they may just stall the whole process. All right. In terms of Exhibit B, which is a history and experience, this one is scored. So we're going to be using this exhibit to make sure that you're good enough. The products and services that you are offering are within the scope and they're competitive, and we can go forward with you. So this one is very, very important. Be as detailed as you want, just to give us an idea of who you are and what you do and what you can offer as a vendor to DIR. All right, next slide, please. All right, Exhibit C. Now here, this is a contract marketing and customer support plan that is also scored. So we're gonna have this during the evaluation be looked at. In addition, because this is a competitive program, you'll be competing with your other vendors. So you probably want to provide enough information here so we know what you're gonna do in supporting the marketing and supporting the customers that you'll be servicing, if you will, to get this contract. So here, you must provide a plan that describes the respondent's ability and strategy for promoting and supporting the contract. That is, if the contract is awarded to you. In terms of Exhibit B and Teresa will talk a little bit more about this in a couple of slides down the road. But suffice to say that here you must provide the HSP form as instructed in the RFO section 341. And here, if this form somehow is not the recent one, and I believe the one that we have right now is actually recent, but if it is not, you can always go into the CPA website and download the latest one and use the most current one. Okay, but I believe this one is actually current for now, but just in case. All right, in terms of Exhibit E, is the itemized pricing sheet. And again, Vanya will take you guys a little deeper on this later on because it's a specific form that needs to be filled out. It's not just any other spreadsheet. So you're gonna have to pay attention on this one. Here, you must submit specific pricing for products and services that are requested. Respondent must respond as instructed in Exhibit E, which is the itemized pricing sheet spreadsheet. Okay, next slide, please. All right, Exhibit F is the vendor reference. Now, here you must send a reference form to a minimum of 3 companies or government agents or whoever you've served before and ask them to be referees for you. Now, reference must respond to DI on the form provided by the due date in order to be considered for evaluation. Respondent may not submit the reference form to DI. In other words, your referees get to submit the forms, not you. Okay. Exhibit G, this is whether you release the liability for your references. Now, this is where you actually tell us that the references will be this and that, and then we'll take it from there. Exhibit H is one of our federal requirements. Here, you must provide the EGA certification form as requested in section 351, which is the federal requirements for this RFO. All right, next slide, please. All right, these 3 exhibits are specifically for digital accessibility, and Marie will come in later on to talk a little bit about this. But suffice to say, the respondent must complete the policy driven adoption for accessibility, which is a PDAA form, and all this has to be submitted whether regardless of which product or services you are responding to. So this is a must submit. We have another one, Exhibit J, which is a VPAT, and here respondents must provide an accessibility conformance report or ACR for all the commercial off-the-shelf products that you are offering to the customers. And the last but not least, Exhibit K, this is respondents here, you must provide a completed vendor accessibility development service information request, or sometimes referred to as VATSA, for all the proposed development services listed in Exhibit E or the itemized pricing sheet. So this one, if you're offering certain products that require VATSA, this one will have to be in, but you will determine whether your product requires Exhibit K, depending on what you are offering. All right. Next slide, please. RFO Scope. So go to the next slide. So section 2 of the RFO itself, here really we intend to contract with you, the respondent, to provide emergency preparedness for the product and a related service for this RFO, okay? So you may submit an offer based on any or one combination of the technology that is within the solicitation scope. This is the big word here. It has to be within the solicitation scopes because there are many products and services that may not necessarily be within the scope. So you have to pay attention here that whatever it is that you are offering and you are submitting as part of a response, they're within the scope. Next slide, please. So some of the products that we are soliciting for this RFO may include, but are certainly not limited to what we are looking here at on this slide. So things like emergency alert notification systems, we'll be looking for those, disaster identification system, mass communication systems, and this may include anything from public address systems, digital signage, or mobile applications. We are also soliciting for radio and mobile communication systems, mobile and static command centers. Like I said, this list is by no means exhaustive. Okay, next slide, please. Continue with the product that we are soliciting for in this RFO, looking for unmanned vehicles. And again, this product may include things like drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned ground vehicles, remotely operated vehicles, unmanned aircraft system, unmanned underwater vehicles, and drones, and so on and so forth. So depending on the NIG community code, for this particular RFO, you'll know exactly what's within the scope as far as products are concerned, right? We also solicited for data vans, emergency communication and response systems. And again, this may be specialized incident response trailers. And we're also looking for sensors and monitoring systems. Now, in terms of the product, these are some of the products we are looking for. But again, the NIGP codes will determine exactly what products you are soliciting for, and then we'll make a decision based on what you have submitted as part of your responses. All right. Next slide, please. In terms of the services which are within the scope, we are soliciting for data backup recovery systems. And this may include anything from regular backups to cloud-based solutions. In terms of communication system that we are soliciting for, this may be wireless, emergency alert system, and the platform that goes along with that. We also soliciting for incident response systems, which may be cybersecurity incident response or IT infrastructure restoration and all the related stuff that goes along with incident response. In terms of business continuity planning and disaster recovery as a service, we are soliciting all those related services that goes along with business planning continuity. And this may include anything from recovery size, visualization, and cloud computing as it relates to disaster recovery and emergency preparedness. So those are the services that we are soliciting for. And once again, I must repeat this list is not exhaustive by any means. All right, let's move to the next slide. We also soliciting for product-related services. Now, these are the services that has to be tied to a product that you are offering. And things like installation, warranty, maintenance support. If you're offering, for instance, emergency response system, and there's an installation that's required, there will be a product-related services or the warranties or the maintenance of that system or even the training. So this is what we mean by product-related services. So you cannot you cannot bid for product-related services without an underlying product that goes along with that. That's basically what we are saying here. All right, next slide. So what's not on in scope? What are the exclusions here? There's quite a few of those. So products and services that are not advertised in this RFO, obviously, and are not in an NIGP code that have been provided in your RFO, they will obviously not be in scope. So you do not want to add products that are outside of the NIGP code that we have provided with you, okay? Related service only, like installation maintenance I just talked about in the previous slide, are those that are not accompanied by a related product. So those have to come in with a related product. Otherwise, they will not be in scope. In in terms of other exclusions, customer application development services are not in scope, not for this RFO. Deliverable-based information technology, so DBITS is not on this scope. As a matter of fact, it's a standalone, and it's just been solicited, and we're busy working on that. So it's not part of this solicitation at all. Cloud broker services, cloud assessment services are not part of this, are not in scope this time around on this RFO, and professional consulting services defined in Chapter 2254 of the Texas Government Code is definitely not on this scope. Right, next. Thank you. All right, products identified in the state of Texas prohibited software, and there's a link there that you can go in there and see a whole list of other prohibited software applications that may not be bid along with this RFO, and most certainly that's specifically outlined there that you cannot bid for them. And last but not least, telecommunications services, including but not limited to any telecommunications services offered as in a contract awarded by DIR under tax and procurement is not on scope for this RFO. So this is it concerning the what's in scope and what's out of scope for this particular RFO. Okay, can move to the next slide, please. Evaluation criteria. Next slide. So here, when we do evaluation of responses, we're looking for certain things. If for some reason you send us your responses and it's incomplete, it will be rejected. So you have to make sure that whatever you send in is complete, and obviously Exhibit A is signed, so we can move to the next stage. Also, if your financial reviews and accessibility reviews and SPs are not in order, those are pass and fail. So there's really no wiggle room there. So just make sure that whatever you send in is complete, and it's most certainly has all the parts that are required for you to move to the next step of the process. And failure to provide DUNS number, which is the one that we use to do financial compliance for you, we need that information to move forward to the next step. So if you do not provide that, or you provide the number that is incomplete and we cannot do compliance on you, that might jeopardize your submission. So make sure that that number is provided and is actually working, is what we are looking for. A failure to complete a PDAA may result in your response also being disqualified. Only responses that receive the passing grades will proceed to the next phase of evaluation. So it's very, very important that once you submit your stuff, make sure that it's complete, because if it's not, you are not going to make it to the evaluation phase. Okay. In terms of section 422 of the RFO, we talk about the weighted evaluation criteria. So what weighs more than anything here is the pricing. Pricing is important, and all the discount that you are offering to our customers. For this RFO, pricing by itself weighs 40%, which is pretty massive compared to other weightings. So make sure that you got your pricing right. The discount is competitive because you'll be evaluated against your peers. So the more competitive you are, the better chances of you getting a contract with DIR. Okay. The other weights goes to history and experience of your company. So you tell us what you're going to be doing, what you have done, your experience, given the product that you are proposing here. And the other 30% goes to your marketing and customer support plan, which is Exhibit C, that you need to fill in and send it in as well. So those will be the weighted criteria that we are going to be using to make sure that you are competitive and you can go to the next step. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, let's look at the contract itself. Next slide. So terms of contract for this, that will be awarded from this RFO, there shall be 2-year commencing on the last day of approval by DIR and vendor. So vendor, you'll sign the contract, and then our chief officer will sign their part, and at that point in time, the contract becomes active. Now the contract is renewable, and it can renew automatically in one optional 2-year renewal and one optional 1-year renewal under the same terms and conditions, unless either party provides notice to the other party 60 days in advance of the renewal date, stating that the party wishes to discuss modification of terms or not to renew. So it's really up to you. At one point, we can say, you can say we don't want to go on with this contract, and then we have to communicate from there. And when DIR and vendors agrees, then we'll determine whether we move forward or not. In terms of option to extend, here, I know this is going to be a mouthful, but just in essence, it says successful respondent agrees that DIR may require continued performance under this contract at the rate specified in this contract following the expiration of the initial term of any renewal term. This option may be exercised more than once, but the total extension of performance here under shall not exceed 90 calendar days. Such extension of service shall be are subject to the requirements of the contract, with the sole and limited exception that the original date of the termination shall be extended pursuant to the provision. DIR may exercise this option upon 30-day calendar days with a written notice to the successful response. So really here it talks about the option to extend, which is available, but whatever option is within the terms and conditions of the contracts. Okay. Next slide, please. Next one. All right, let's talk about the schedule of events. So this RFO has been out on ESBD since June 24th, 2025. It's been there about 3 weeks or so. So you guys must have seen it, and I've already seen some responses coming in. So so make sure that you go in there and you take your time to make sure you know what is required, and you give yourself enough time to submit, because you never know what can happen in the last minutes, okay? The next big date is, well, today is July 8th. That's when we're doing this pre-proposal webinar. But the next big date is this Friday. This is the deadline when you are required to submit all the questions that you have through the VIS system, okay? And there's a timeline there, is by 5 o'clock. So make sure that all the questions that you have, some of them we're gonna give you an opportunity to answer to ask them today. And we're gonna do our best to give you the answers. And you can also remember that the answers that we are giving to you today are not final, but we'll give you some answers of some sort. The final ones will be posted in the form of an addendum later on. But up between now and Friday, you have all that time to submit questions, and we'll answer them accordingly. And the next big date is August the 13th at 2 o'clock. This is when all the references have to be submitted through the email from all the people who you've picked to, all the companies or state agencies that you have picked to be your references, okay? And all the responses to this RFO must be in on August 13th at 2 p.m. Now the system is automated. At that time at 2 p.m., the submission button will go gray on you. So we won't even have control on our side to make provision for that. So again, give yourself enough time to submit in time, just in case there's a glitch to the system, or maybe something is going wrong, okay? So that's huge date, August 13th. Make a note that all your people who need to provide you all the information that you need to submit is provided by that date. And on August 18, which is Monday following the closing of the RFO, that's when we start evaluation process. We're gonna start doing some negotiation and all the way until we start awarding contracts. All right, next slide, please. All right, I think this will be a good spot here to let Teresa take you guys through the HUB requirements for this RFO.
Thank you, Moshe. Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Williamson. I'm the director of the HUB program here at DIR. So let's talk about the importance of submitting a correctly completed and signed HUB subcontracting plan. Next slide, please. All vendors, HUB and non-HUB, are required to complete and sign a HUB subcontracting plan. It's also known as your HSP. Please visit this link that's provided for the most currently approved HSP copy. You will be required to download the form to complete it. Please remember not to modify this form or export it into a Word document. This copy is an editable form, and it is owned and managed by the Comptroller's Office. Next slide. Again, all respondents are required to submit a completed signed HSP. Failure to submit a completed signed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass or fail item. There are 3 ways to complete your HSP. The first is if you will meet or exceed the HUB goal, you'll complete method A. The second is if you're not going to meet the HUB goal, you'll complete method B. And the third is to self-perform. Next slide. The HUB goal that is set for this RFO is 21.1%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the 21.1% HUB goal, you'll complete method A. Be sure to identify all HUB and non-HUB vendors that you will be subcontracting with, include the anticipated dollar amounts and expected percentages. So when completing method A, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4, and method A attachment A. Next slide. If you're going to subcontracts below the HUB goal, you'll complete method B. Be sure to solicit a minimum of 3 HUB certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations. With method B, good faith effort, you must allow them 7 working days to respond to you prior to the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach to these entities with your HUB subcontracting plan submission. So you will complete sections 1, 2, 4, and method B, attachment B. Also, don't forget to include those approximate dollar amounts and expected percentages. Please allow yourself plenty of time to complete your method B good faith effort. Please remember that the day that you send out your correspondence is considered day 0. If you are completing method B, I have seen many companies submit an incomplete method B good faith effort and fail the process because of it. So please give yourself plenty of time to follow through with instructions when completing this method. Also, the HUB office will provide you with a courtesy review of your completed HSP as time permits prior to the due date of this RFO. Next slide. The third method is self-performing. If you will be self-performing, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. In your self-performing justification, you'll identify how your company will fulfill a contract with your current staff, equipment, and resources. Please do not say that you'll subcontract in the future or if you need to. Tell us how you will self-perform a contract should you be awarded. Next slide. In case you didn't know, DIR, or this is just a reminder, DIR does have a YouTube channel. These 3 links are to the resources available to walk you through the process of completing an HSP using each of the methods that we just talked about. Next slide. And to continue with these support tools, here's a list of some of the most common errors that we see on an HSP. But all in all, the biggest error is not using your resources to assist you when completing and passing your HSP. Next slide. My contact information is listed here. Again, the HUB office will provide you with the complimentary or courtesy review of your completed HSP prior to the due date of this RFO as time permits. You must contact us no later than 10 business days prior to the due date of this RFO. Please take advantage of this courtesy review. And remember, when corresponding with the HUB office, to make sure that you're including the procurement lead, which in this case is Moshe, on all correspondence. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Vanya. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Vanya Raymakers, and I am a procurement lead here with DIR Cooperative Procurement Program. Next slide, please. So the first thing for you guys to understand is that you are going to do your pricing forms in two different ways, and both of these are required in order for you to be considered a responsive vendor, which means you will have to submit a spreadsheet with your in an Excel format. Do not PDF it, and submit it with your response in the VIS portal. And you will also create a pricing form in the VIS portal, which we'll talk about it later, as part of your response. And I will walk you through everything you need to do and how you're going to prepare your pricing form and what is the best way to make sure that your pricing form is accepted. So the first thing, we need to make sure that you're going to fill out your spreadsheet. And this is how I would start with the spreadsheet. In the spreadsheet, we have a tab that tells you how to prepare your data entry for the VIS portal pricing form you're going to create. Okay. So you should not assume that they will have the ability to negotiate better pricing. Propose the pricing that you are planning to propose to our customers, okay? Just remember, your 40% comes on your price. Your discount is the most important part of your proposal. And you need to make sure you follow all the instructions, okay? Next slide. So, as I told you before, we're going to have a itemized pricing form in an Excel format, and you're going to have a pricing form created in the VIS portal, okay? For those of you that are going to deal with leasing proposals, now remember, being that this is an emergency preparedness RFO, 9 out of 10, we're going to either lease or rent anything that is needed for that disaster area most of the time versus purchasing, because it's a time frame thing. So whatever we needed during the emergency period. Some things we will purchase long term, and other things we will just either rent or lease. So keep in mind that on one of the tabs, I'm going to show you how to put in your leasing formula, which each and every one of you know that the lease usually have a 0 discount because the discount is provided at the total of each line item I am leasing. So I'm going to do an itemized list of my leasing and all of these products will be on your pricing form. And then you're going to apply a form to whatever many days or months I'm renting or leasing that item for. And then you're going to put that formula in your proposal, okay? Next. So here we're going to talk about your itemized pricing, how you're going to fill out your spreadsheet. So tab 1, you're going to see instructions. Read them carefully. We try to address everything. But if you can't find something or you're missing something, please let us know. I'll be glad to talk to anyone that needs help. Moshe will make sure you get with him, set up a time, and we'll talk about it. And we'll also answer any questions that you will ask during the question period of this RFO, okay? So you're gonna have a tab 2A for hardware and miscellaneous equipment details. So everything that has to do with the hardware and equipment, such as miscellaneous equipment, is camera, is drones, is any kind of cabling or different things that are required, like maybe something comes in a trailer and you pricing it separate, doing the if you're dragging an equipment from one area to another. I'm not quite sure how everything works on your world, but just remember, hardware is going to be your computers, your laptops, your radios, those kind of things, and your miscellaneous is going to go in one tab, okay? Tab 2 is the software products detail. So some of your hardware will already come built in with software. Make sure you put that on your descriptions. But if your software license or access software as a service, say during the period of an emergency, there is a software that will access through the web in order to do what we need to do, tracing people, tracking equipment, tracking where everybody is and what they're doing during an emergency. Those kind of software services and software products goes on tab 2B, okay? Try not to mix these because they get evaluated based on the brands, and I will walk you through this in just a minute. Tab 3 is what I told you before, is what we're going to do to prep you for the VIS portal bid stamp brand data entry. So we're going to enter an average discount per brand when you create your bid stamp VIS portal pricing form. That is your evaluation. So I strongly recommend that you pay good attention to this formulas, and everything needs to add up because we will validate your pricing form with your bid stamp data entry before we run the scores, okay? Tab 4 is services. Services are not going to be evaluated in the VIS portal. They're not evaluated, but we want to award services, therefore you're going to list them here. The difference between services and related services, that's why they're in different tabs. Related service is anything that we buy through a manufacturer or not provided by a prime vendor. Services or professional service or IT service is what we purchase directly from the prime vendor proposing the RFO, okay? And then tab 6 will be your volume discounts. If there is any, you're welcome to propose that, okay? Tab 4, 5, and 6 do not go into bid stamp, and it does not get evaluated. However, it is necessary to be listed and proposed in order to be awarded, okay? Next step, next slide. All right, so this is what you're gonna see on tab 1. I tried to make it very clear so you guys can follow it through it, one tab at a time, so you know exactly how you're going to fill those out, right? So we're going to walk them through it and walk each step with you, but it's here in case you missed anything. I know you all can read, so I'm not going to read this to you. I'm expecting you to read every single instructions of your RFO so that you can fill out the pricing sheet correctly, okay? Next step. Next slide. Yeah, there we go. So the next thing, we're going to go tab 1. Here's your notes to understand. So pricing to the DR customer always is going to include shipping and handling fees, okay? You can add additional rows on your spreadsheet as necessary. You will enter a discount on the automating pricing form and in bid stamp. We'll walk you through that on tab 3. And then there is a field where you can attach your accessibility forms here for your software and your hardware. And that would be your columns F, G on tab 2 and tab 2A and B, okay? So if you have a VPAT or a VATSR that you're going to add to the spreadsheet, the PDAA is not part of this. That is about your company, and it's a separate spreadsheet that you will submit, okay? And then we're going to make sure we don't enter any prices into the automated pricing system. And if you have any question and need additional guidance, there is a section in the RFO 3.1, point of contact. You contact Moshe, and he will get us together and we will help you and answer any questions. Next slide. So here's what you're going to look at your spreadsheet. When you open this form, you will see, by the way, that little VPAT right there at the bottom should have been over here. It kind of got dragged over there. I don't know why, but it will be right here on this column which says VPAT, okay? And a lot of spreadsheets have some issues with you attaching these things. Make sure that your spreadsheet is not in any way coded to the point where we can't open when we download it from the system. So don't encrypt any data on the spreadsheet. Make sure it's flat. Make sure the spreadsheet can be open and downloaded easy, okay? We have some issues sometimes with people that like to put encryption to protect their pricing and whatever. Keep in mind, this is the government. Everything is open records unless you specifically tell us why not. And then it has to go to legal to approve if it is actually something that is super confidential, okay? So over here, you have your brand. Now remember, when you're spelling your brand names, use the market common usage for spelling. Don't make your own spelling, because then we'll have to go in and correct it, because the way the system works, it looks at the brand name, looks at the item and the discount in order to collect the information, to do the average and apply your score. It's all done automatically. There's no thinking here. So it's important that you, when you write Sony, don't type it with an IE. Don't type it with a small s and a big S. Make sure you put the way it is marked, the industry spelling for that brand, okay? So you're gonna tell me if it's a hardware or if it's a equipment. So the category will be hardware or miscellaneous equipment. Subcategory is gonna be what type. Is it a server? Is it a notebook? Is cabling? Is it a camera? That's your subcategory. Your product description is whatever your product description you're lining up. Your part number is pretty self-explanatory, okay? And then you're going to put your VPATs, if it's included or not, and you're gonna attach it here. Are you a manufacturer or are you a reseller, okay? The MSRP list or list price, depending on how you do it. The discount that you're gonna provide, and then the formula, don't touch it. That formula will do itself because it adds our administrative fee to it, okay? And so we have to look at that. Now, next slide. So this is 2A for hardware and miscellaneous. This is 2B for software. The fields are the same. The categories and subcategories are different. Your brand, keep in mind, always spell the brand based on the industry spelling. Category, software as a service or software license. That's your category for software. So I'm either going to access the software to our website or I'm going to buy a license to own the software, right? And then subcategory is like a function. What is the software for? If it's to access to maintain data information, to track information, to or is it a cybersecurity, or is it an encryption software, or is a scanner software? What is the function of the software you're proposing? And then you have your product description, your part number, and you can put your VPATs here. Are you including your accessibility documents here or not? You can also submit your accessibility documents separate with their own individual PDF files, okay? You don't have to attach it here if that's gonna cause a size issue for your document, okay? You're gonna tell me for the software, are you the manufacturer or developer for software in this case, or a reseller of that software? Your price, your discount, and don't touch the last column. The system will take care of that, okay? Now over here on any one of these spreadsheets, you're gonna add column and you're gonna copy and paste so that the formula copies and pastes equally and you don't have to worry about fixing the formula. Guys, let me tell you something. Do not create your own formula here. This formula is based on a percentage of it's ready to calculate the administrative fee for that product. Don't go in here and take it out because you're going to give us the administrative fee as part of your negotiation. This is not the place for you to tell me that. Okay? Don't touch the formula because it's very important for us. It makes it easy at our end to review these spreadsheets to make sure the formula is right, to look and bid stamp in VIS portal, make sure that your data entry the correct information and the percentages if you not mess with that formula. Okay? Next slide. So here's your bid stamp portal. So when you were working on tab 2A and 2B, you're listing your products. I expect you to list everything by brand. So at the bottom of it, before you change a brand name, you're going to do an average discount. If that brand only has one discount, then you don't need to average. You're just going to list the discount and then you're going to put it here. There's no average because if a brand by itself only has one discount, you don't have to worry about the average. If, for example, notebooks sometimes and laptops have different pricing depending on their how they are configured. If I buy one with 32 megs or 64 or more memory or maybe a different chip, they have different discounts. So you're going to list them all on tab 2A. And before you change your brand, you're going to average that brand discount. One, this is also very common for software. Software license have a different discount than SaaS subscriptions sometimes. Some vendors do the same discount, some change. So you're going to average the two discounts for that software, for that brand, and that's what you're going to add here. So the fields that you're going to capture from tab 2A and 2B are, is the brand name, is it a software, hardware? The category is very important, not the subcategory, the category. I need to know what this is. What is the product type? Okay. Very simple. Is it a computer? Is it a tablet? Is it a radio? Is it drones? What is the product type? Not necessarily the product description, just the type. Okay. And then the average discount will go here that you're going to calculate on tab 2A and 2B. Now, this form right here is all you're going to need to create your VIS portal pricing form. And I'm going to show you how to do that when we discuss the VIS portal in a minute here, okay? But keep in mind, tab 2A, tab 2B are the critical tabs for your pricing score. And most important is tab 3, which is giving you the information to data entry into the VIS portal pricing form. Now, please do not take shortcuts. Don't think that you can fill out tab 3 without 2A and 2B. Don't think that you can send me just tab 3 with 300 brands and discounts and not have anything on 2A and 2B. Because that is not considered responsive. That doesn't give me what I need to evaluate this RFO, okay? You have to do the work. No, I don't want you to enter 3,000 products on 2A or 2B or your entire catalog, okay? But I want you to think of a product, the number of discounts that product has, and list the product on each area so that your average discount is accurate. Give me enough products that gives me an idea of what you're proposing to sell, okay? And how that is going to affect our customers based on the discount. So brand average discounts is what we're looking for by category, okay? Next slide. So here's tab 4 and tab 5. The reason they're together because they're very similar. You're going to tell me what services you are going to provide to our customer, your company with your yourself as the prime or your subcontractors or your resellers. So who is going to provide these services, right? So some vendors will say, every brand I provide, I can service. So project management, implementation, in this type of environment of emergency preparedness, we expect somebody to be on site when you deliver the stuff to set it all up and get it to work before we give it to the first responders, right? So we're going to have some lot of services. There's technical expert. We're going to need project managers. We're going to need installation. We're going to need configure whatever your company provides for the services goes on tab 4. Okay. Tab 5 is related service, are things that you are going to get from the manufacturer with a SKU that somebody else is going to provide and you're selling as those services. Maintenance for the hardware, any type of on-site repairs, any type of training to use, any type of services, like sometimes on an emergency when I work for TCEQ, we would have a service software where we could call somebody during an emergency and they would help us with the software problems right there, 24/7 on the spot. So those are things that comes from the software providers, okay? The developers in that sense. Next slide. Next slide. So here is your volume discount, totally optional, is not a requirement, but as you all know, as I tell vendors all the time, DIR is negotiating with you based on the volume of our entire program, what I call mystic dollars, right? They're real, but DIR is not spending that money. DIR is leveraging that volume, okay? When you're dealing with our customers, they are going to negotiate with you for real money, for real dollars that they are about to spend. So they're going to negotiate a volume discount in some shape or form with you based on their immediate expenditure, real money, real volume. So here you can give us an idea what that volume looks like that the customer can expect to get on a discount additional. Remember, the column that says additional discount, it has to relate to the discount you're giving me on tab 2A and 2B. So if I buy brand ABC, and if I buy 1 unit, I get 5% discount minimum. But if I buy 100 to 500 units, I will get an additional 1.5% discount. So what is the minimum in order to get the original discount? And what do I get if I buy more? Okay. So over here is that example. It actually should say 2 to 99 because if you buy one is the minimum discount. What if I buy more, right? So that's what you're looking at. On the next one is for dollars. So do I get the same discount if I spend $1 million or $50,000 or $100,000? Aggregate sales means same customers and they're buying all kinds of stuff. It's a combination, aggregate, software, hardware, service. It's a whole picture. If I'm spending a whole lot of money, do I get an additional discount? And keep in mind, this is not a total discount. This is an additional discount. Okay. And if I have a customer that is with me, this is emergency preparedness, so that might not fall in. But sometimes you have a customer that is going to sign with you for 3 or 4 years. Those people might get a total aggregate sales, including their annual maintenance plus their original. And they might negotiate that type of discount with you. Again, volume discount is something that can be done at the customer level. But if you want to propose it, this is the tab to do it. Okay, next slide. So here's bid stamp. So when you go into VIS portal, and we're going to walk you through it later on, how to get in, how to start your uploading your documents, there's going to be a button there that says create a pricing form. When you click on that button, this is the screen that you're going to see. And as I told you before, you're going to need your category, right? It was on tab 3, remember? Am I buying software? And I'm buying hardware? Am I buying miscellaneous equipment? Right? Those 3 things, category. Then what is my brand? Is it Sony? Is it Dell? Is it HP? Is it Adobe? Whatever that brand is, go here. Again, spelling is critical. Don't be creative, because we will review the brands, because the system is going to look at that brand name and it's going to look at that discount and it's going to calculate your score. So how you spell that brand name is important in order for you not to get an error when we run the report. And we will verify it before we run the pricing scores, okay? But it would really help if you remember to put your brand name exactly how it is in the industry. Don't be creative with those names, okay? And then the product description over here can simply be the function, okay? If it's a software and it's a brand, case management, or it could be drones, drone software, or drone, whatever the product description is, but it's simple and it doesn't have to be huge and it doesn't have to be by item. This is by brand, average brand, okay? Product number, you're gonna always put NA. For this purpose only, for this RFO, no matter what, your product number is gonna be NA, okay? You're gonna say manufacturer reseller, just like you did on your spreadsheet. And then you're gonna put your average discount that you calculated from tab 3 right there, okay? You're gonna add rows and you're gonna enter all of your categories here: hardware, software, miscellaneous equipment. Okay, those are your categories and they will all go here, okay? Next slide. All right, so now I'm gonna go over some general information to help you guys with other parts of this RFO submission. Go ahead, next slide. So always reference the RFO page number, section number when submitting questions through the VIS portal, okay? That's the only way you can submit questions to this RFO. Remember, do not open a question screen on the VIS portal and enter 100 questions. It's 1 question per line. You got to create a second question. If you have another question, you got to create another question. Do not submit 100 questions in one submission, in one screen. Please do not do that. It makes our lives very difficult, okay? And sometimes you might miss one of your questions because it came through and it might not came through the whole way. It might got truncated due to the system, the many characters. There's all kinds of reasons. You should put 1 question per entry, okay? So all questions answered today are unofficial until posted on ESPD through an addendum. We will do an addendum right after this meeting that will provide you the slides and a list of the attendants, okay? Later, we will do an addendum with the Q&A questions and answers from today, okay? So you always check the SBD for updates. If you are on the VIS portal, and you check the button that says subscribe, then you will get a notice from us when we post an addendum. Keep in mind that sending you notices is something DIR does as an add-on, and we go the extra mile to keep vendors informed. Keeping up with the ESBD and addendums to these notifications is your job, okay? And if you don't get it, it's not our responsibility, it's very important to understand that all the things that we do are very critical, but we do a lot of extras, guys. DIR goes above and beyond notifying vendors. We have our YouTube, we have all the social medias, we have our website, we send out notice, but there's always sometimes somebody misses something, but I always make sure you know, checking the ESBD for updates is your responsibility, okay? And all questions submitted in writing through the bid stamp system, July 11th, 5 p.m. is the deadline. So I hope you all are gathering your questions as we go along, okay? Next slide. All right, so things that can disqualify you: failure to sign respondent certification, which is Exhibit A, okay? And I always try to tell vendors, make sure your signature is official, okay? And make sure if I can drag and drop it out of a page, it doesn't give me the fuzzies on a signature page. I like wet signatures or our official e-sign system signature. Failure to complete your financial information, the DUNS number. And by the way, guys, putting in a wrong DUNS number because you don't know it and you're just making it up so that that field is filled in with a number doesn't count as complete final financial information DUNS number. It has to be your real DUNS number, okay? Failure to complete your hub plan. Failure to complete your accessibility form. Failure to submit before the due date. And by the way, don't start your submission and bid stamp at 150 because every time you load a document, it takes seconds for it to load and you will not see that submit button at 2 o'clock. Doesn't matter if you started at 150. If that submit button disappear, it's because the clock run out. So let's do it early, okay? Don't contact anybody, please. Only Moshe is the only designated person that you can contact. You can submit requests to the hub office for review because they will do a courtesy review of your hub plan and help you out. You can submit to the email for the accessibility that you're going to get later on. All of that is going to be CC to Moshe, so he has a record of your contact. Other than that, don't be talking to nobody else. Even though I'm doing this presentation, if you contact me, I will send it to Moshe, okay? I will not answer to protect you, okay? Any vendor responding to this RFO must submit their response through the portal, okay? We don't have any place you can come and submit your response manually or by emails. We don't take that either. And by the way, do not send your forms and response documents through the mailbox, the RFO mailbox that is for your customers to submit their references, because we're not going to accept that, okay? Just making sure I do all the circles of what I've seen. Next slide. So, an IGP code, negotiation phase. Just remember, if you're going to provide a product and a service, make sure it matches with the NIGP code listed under our RFO page. DIR only uses the NIGP code. We do not use government codes. We don't use federal codes. Only the NIGP codes, okay? Okay, next slide. So this is an important piece here, the three-way match. I always tell everybody, four-way is better, but three-way is critical. So in order for you to pass the financial review before I can even run your SIR number, I must have a three-way match, okay? Our finance department is very picky about this. So your Exhibit A response document, which is the most important document you're submitting, your Duns and Bradstreet record for your company must match. Address, legal address, number, company name with or without DBA, as you are registered legally. Okay? Those are critical. Later on, your Secretary of State registration for your company and your bid stamp Salesforce account all should match, guys. You should know your company name. You should know if your company has a DBA that is registered, not a marketing name, not what you use that everybody knows you from, but what is legally registered. So the one things that delay vendors from moving from administrative review to evaluation is this right here. So if I was a vendor, I go print out my Duns and Bradstreet record and my Duns and Bradstreet number, and I would fill out my Exhibit A based on that. Make sure that your bid stamp sales account match that as well. And that's your three-way match right there. Okay? This is critical, guys. This is not something that we do it for fun. This is legal requirement here. Okay? And I know for some vendors, they call themselves ABC here, and then over there, they call themselves CDL, and over there, they call it. Over here, you have to have a legal name register that you know what that is. Okay? And I know that sounds so silly, but trust me, I've seen it all. Next slide. So, what information must match? As I told you before, company, legal name. If your DBA is registered, if it is not, don't even bother. Okay? Including punctuation, because for some reason that matters. Your corporate address. Now, here's a trick. Legal address and corporate address. I always tell vendors, what is your DUNS number registered under? That's the name and the address I will need to be in all your other documents, okay? Company FIN number, very important. This is your federal tax ID number for your company. It should match your DUNS number, your SOS. Everything in this picture should match because it's one company. And I know that the Duns and Bradstreet usually set up accounts by location. So if I'm a company and I'm real big and I have 7 different locations, I still one company with one corporate address. That's what I'm contracting with. That's the number I need. Okay, next slide. So this is what you're going to do when we go through the VIS portal. We're going to show you the button where you're going to upload your documents. What is a responsive solicitation package? That is when you include every single required document. How do we know that you're submitting those documents? You have the correct name convention right there. Okay? When you're doing a ACR and a VADSR, you put your company name and the brand name and you upload it. Okay? If you're not putting it on the spreadsheet, I strongly recommend you upload it separately. It just makes less volume in that spreadsheet. Is not as big when you're uploading it, depending on how many products you're proposing. Now, your Exhibit A, you're going to do company name or initials, shorten the name, your RFO number, and the name of the Exhibit A. Okay, don't put vendor response, don't put certification. It's Exhibit A. That's how we recognize that document. That tells you the docs means it's a Word document. It could be a PDF. If your signature document will be a PDF. Exhibit B can be a document or it can be a PDF. Same thing with Exhibit C. The hub plan is you're going to download it from the CPA office, the latest form, and it's usually a PDF. Pricing sheet is going to always be an Excel, and it's going to be submitted as an Excel. Okay? try not to encrypt any of these documents, okay? For those of you that have what I call confidential information, you're going to do the redacted forms. So you're going to have an Exhibit B with what we can read and an Exhibit D redacted document so legal can release it. You will enter 2 Exhibit Bs and 2 Exhibit Cs, 2 Exhibit As, 1 redacted and 1 that we can read all the information. And you're going to do your accessibility forms. You're going to do your EDGAR form. Now, response release of liability. Most vendors make the mistake of sending that to their customers, for their customers to send it to us. But we don't need your customer's release. We need your release. You send us that form for every one of your references so that we can contact them. You're giving us permission to contact them. Okay? They will give us permission when they send us the reference form. And then you have your exceptions, the Exhibit A1. And then you have your letters of authorization, which should all be signed, by the way, if possible. And then any of the addendums that are out, sometimes the addendums will have 1 page with addendums, say the last addendum that we put out is going to say addendum 1 through 4, addendum 1 through 5. That one front page that says I've read all the addendums and I acknowledge all the addendums, that's what you're going to add here. Okay? So it's going to be company name, RFO, and then it's going to say addendum. Okay? Next slide. So for those vendors that haven't yet been able to look at if you're brand new to the DIR cooperative program, I strongly recommend you go into our YouTube channel and watch both of these videos, especially the bid stamp one, because I walk you through step by step everything you need to know about bid stamp and about the VIS portal, which if you don't realize by now, when I say bid stamp, VIS, same thing. Okay, but I would strongly recommend you watch these. And the session 1, where I tell you how to respond to an RFO for the cooperative contract, walks you through everything step by step so you don't miss anything. So can never hurt. Next slide. And again, don't talk to anybody except Moshe. Next slide. And now I think, Stephanie, are you online? Am I going to pass it on to you?
Yes, I'm available.
There you go. So now Stephanie is going to walk you all through bid stamp.
I'm Stephanie Harrison. I'm the Director of Cooperative Procurement, and we're going to talk about the bid stamp VIS portal. There's quite a few questions that have already been submitted about bid stamp. So hopefully we'll cover that in our explanation here. Next slide, please. So any respondent responding to this RFO must submit through the bid stamp portal, VIS. Our website also has a Tech for Texas portal. That one's not active for cooperative contracts yet. So you still need to submit through the vendor VIS system for bid stamp, or we do not receive your proposal. Before you can access bid stamp, if you do not have a current account, you'll need to request an account through the bid stamp system and request for credentials. The approval process is a manual process on the back end. So you do have to allow a few business days for that to be approved. Do not wait until the last minute to request access to this portal. You will miss the submission deadline. So do it now, request the access to the portal. And then once that is approved, then you can start submitting your response documents. When you're setting up your bid stamp account, use your Secretary of State legal company name as it's registered. I think Vanya's covered this a couple of times. It's very important that we're able to connect the name that you submit to the name that is actually registered with the Texas Secretary of State. Failure to do so will delay the negotiation process if you make it that far in the process, but we do need to be able to verify that you're eligible to do business in the state of Texas. So your bid stamp name account should match what your legal company name is registered as, not a DBA, not an abbreviation, what your actual legal company name is. You can also view a video on how to set up your bid stamp account on the dir.texas.gov outreach and training. In my opinion, the better video is going to be on YouTube, which Vanya referenced a couple slides back. The YouTube video walks you through with slides, demonstrations in how to set up that account. Next slide, please. Persons with disabilities can ask for an accommodation to the bid stamp portal submission process. That information is located in section 3.1 of the RFO. Please allow at least 5 business days for a response for that request. Next slide, please. How you get to the bid stamp portal. So if you have a login already, you click the little sign in icon at the very top right of the DIR website page. So I'm on the DIR, this is the DIR website page. You go to information for vendors, or if you already have a login, you just click sign in at the top and that will take you to Bitstamp. If you are needing to set up your credentials, you're going to click on the information for vendors and then go to selling through DIR. Next slide. This is going to take you to the scheduled solicitation opportunities page, or you will go to that tab, which is located about in the middle of the page. Next slide. There you have the Bitstamp online solicitation portal. You'll select that button. Next slide. Here's where you set up your account. So after your, again, this is not an immediate process. So when you submit your credentials and try to create your account, it goes to our system on the back end. It's reviewed by a team member to ensure that you're actually a IT vendor. We get a lot of just vendors out there that think that this is a notification portal, which it is not. This is just the Bitstamp submission portal to submit responses to cooperative contract solicitations only. So this does not apply to anything else that is active with the DIR. These are co-op solicitation responses only. So they review that to ensure that you're an appropriate vendor for IT products and services. And depending on the volume, it can take anywhere from 1 business day to 2 or 3 business days for that to get approved. Please note these are business days and not weekends because it is a manual approval process. Next slide, please. Once you have your account, this is the tab that you'll see or what your page will look like. You have my account, open solicitation, my responses, and then the bottom 3 tiles take you back to pages on the DIR website. Next slide. You're going to select open solicitations. Next slide. And that's going to take you to the solicitations that are currently open for responses for the cooperative contract program within DIR. The solicitation that you all are here for today is the Emergency Preparedness and Disaster Recovery, which is DIR-CPO-TMP-595. That's the solicitation you'll want to click on. Next slide, please. And then this will take you to the page within Bitstamp for it. So it'll have the date, some information at the top about the RFO, the date it was posted, the Q&A submission deadline, the time and date responses are due. Please note that all DIR cooperative solicitations are due 2 p.m. Central Time on the date of the responses due. At 2:01, you are not able to submit your response, even if you already started, even if you have the window open and you're still uploading documents, the submit button will be gone at 2 o'clock Central Time. It'll also have the vendor conference date. That's today for this solicitation. And the RFO answers to questions deadline. That's a estimated deadline for us to get the Q&A document posted. And then when the evaluation starts, it'll change the actual start of the evaluation. Below that is where you can submit your questions through the Bitstamp portal. It'll only show your questions. You will not see any answers here, but it'll show any questions submitted under your account through the Bitstamp portal. All answers will come in the form of an addendum. We cannot answer questions one-off. We cannot answer questions by email. Everybody gets the same information at the same time through a publicly posted addendum on the Electronic State Business Daily. Next slide, please. When you're creating an RFO response, certain things that you're going to want to pay attention to is the RFO solicitation. The view response allows you to view and resume your progress in the existing RFO response. The ask a question is where you submit those questions. They do have to be submitted by the submission deadline date in order for it to be added to the addendum with a formal response. Questions that come in after the question submission deadline date are not obligated to be included into the official addendum with the Q&A document with a response. You can subscribe to solicitation if you'd like to receive notices for an addendum and have notifications sent to you by the system. We also send out the, as Vanya said, it's up to each vendor to keep up with what's going on the Electronic State Business Daily. But whenever you subscribe to solicitation, you'll receive a notification that goes out to everybody who selected that option whenever we post addendums. The view solicitation documents navigate you to the Electronic State Business Daily for the actual posting documents and to view those solicitation documents. Next slide, please. On the BidStamp system, so this is a view that you all will have once you're into a particular response. So you've already started a response to the particular solicitation. Some of the buttons I'm going to go over here are really important. The delete actually deletes all the information that's been uploaded into the response record before the response has been submitted. Once the response has been submitted, you must withdraw the button if you change your mind and decide you no longer want to submit a response to the solicitation. Submit does exactly that. It submits the response record and all association information that you have uploaded to that particular point in time. Ask a question is the it'll just pop you down to where you can ask a question in the Q&A document section. Again, those do have a time and date deadline for considering a response in the Q&A addendum. Let's see. On this, the pricing form is applicable on here. This particular slide is from another slide deck. We do have a pricing form that you will submit for products. If you're submitting services only, we have instructions on how to submit services only. You don't enter all that detailed information here. It is a one-line response for services only. If you're entering services with product, your product goes in. If you're entering product only, the product goes in. Anything that is not services only will have a pricing form. So this slide will be corrected in an addendum with the correct information. The response documents allows you to upload the response documents as required for the response to solicitation. The actual documents are on the ESBD. So you have to navigate to Electronic State Business Daily to get the RFO and all the documents. When you start uploading them here, that allows you to submit your responses here. The vendor references, this is a courtesy button that allows you to put emails in and send a vendor reference form to your customers through the system. That's not required. You will have no idea if the customer submitted the vendor reference on your behalf. You can email that form out to your customers and ask them to send it back in per the instructions for the vendor reference form. There is a specific email box, and those do have to come back from the customer directly to DIR. They cannot be submitted as a part of your submission documents. Those will not be counted. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Marie Cohan for the accessibility requirements.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Cohan. I'm the statewide digital accessibility officer, and I'm going to go through the required accessibility forms. Next slide, please. So a little bit about digital accessibility. It's the practice of designing and building technology that removes barriers for people with disabilities, preventing interaction with or access to websites, digital tools, and technologies. We want our digital tools and technologies, including products, services, communications, and related supporting documentation or deliverable documents, to be accessible for all state of Texas employees and Texans. This is covered under Texas Government Code, Chapter 2054, Subchapter M. It's in our Texas Administrative Codes 206 and 213, and we follow the Worldwide Web Consortium WCAG 2.1 AA standards, which is an industry standard. Vendors must provide the required accessibility documentation at the time of request. So you will be submitting your documentation for this particular solicitation. However, if any of our customers purchase off the awarded contract at any point in time during the contract life, and they ask for updated accessibility documentation, it must be provided by the vendor. This digital accessibility includes electronic and information resources, which is EIR, and information and communications technology, known as ICT. Next slide, please. So the three documents I'm going to talk about is the Policy-Driven Adoption for Accessibility, or PDAA, the Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request, or VAD-SIR, and then the Accessibility Conformance Report, or ACR, which is a completed VPAT. I'm sure you all are familiar with the VPAT term. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the Policy-Driven Adoption for Accessibility. This is a spreadsheet that is included in the solicitation packet. It is a vendor self-assessment. What this spreadsheet is looking for is understanding where the vendor, the responding vendor, is on their digital accessibility journey. So how knowledgeable are they about digital accessibility? How have they incorporated digital accessibility into their own business practices, and so on. The spreadsheet, you will complete the one that's provided in your packet. There is an example of how to complete it included in the workbook. You will complete the spreadsheet with 0, 1, 2, or 3 as your scores. Please do not put an X or a check mark in there. It needs to be a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3. Please complete the PDAA. Do not leave missing sections in there, or just complete 1 or 2 questions. A missing PDAA, an incomplete PDAA, or a PDAA with a final score of 0 will fail, and your response may not move forward. So please review it very carefully. Even if you understand accessibility and you're just starting to incorporate it into your own business practices, you should have a final score greater than 0. Again, this has nothing to do with the products in your response or any services that you provide in your response. This form is to tell us how you, as a responding vendor, incorporate digital accessibility into your own organizational practices. And this is a required document regardless of your product or service offerings. Next slide, please. This is the PDAA maturity matrix. Again, that vendor self-assessment helps us understand how mature your organization is with regard to digital accessibility. So a lower score will be at a launch stage, and that's fine. A middle score will be at the integrated stage. So showing that you have some policies in place, they may be documented, they may be improved upon as time goes on. And then we have the optimized stage, where you have documented repeatable processes. They're integrated through all business processes across the organization. They're reportable, and maybe you've even taken the next step further, where you've published these processes and become sort of an example with your peer organizations. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk next about products. So if you are responding with any products, software, hardware on your pricing sheet, you will need to submit an accessibility conformance report for each of those products. You hear the term VPAT a lot. The VPAT is just a template that's provided by the Information Technology Industry Council. They're the ones that set those standards and create those templates. Once you test your product against the standards on the template, You'll understand how your product features conform to those different standards. You'll document that on the VPAT. And once you've completed the entire VPAT, it becomes a conformance report. So an ACR, an accessibility conformance report. We do require that you use VPAT version 2.4 or higher. That should be included in your packet. There are instructions included in your packet as well on how to complete the VPAT. The VPAT should be completed based on true accessibility testing results. If the VPAT or the ACR states for testing methodology, general product knowledge, it will score down. So please ensure that the VPATs that are completed were based on some sort of true accessibility testing. Document in there whether it was automated testing, manual testing, testing with assistive technology, or all of the above. If you tested with assistive technology, let us know what type of technology you used. Did you use a JAWS screen reader or NVDA? That will all help with the scoring of the accessibility conformance report and will add credibility to the results that are listed on that report. We are looking for fully supported responses. If there are partially supported, that's fine. Please provide an explanation for anything that is partially supported or not supported. That will help us understand what those gaps are with your product features against those WCAG standards. Anything that is left blank and has a partially supported conformance score, those will be scored down as well. So what I'm looking for when I look at an ACR is I want to see all of the product information. I want to know if this is a web-based product. There is a space for that. I would like to know what the testing methodology was, automated, manual, or assistive technology, what type of assistive technology was used when testing was done, how did it conform to the different standards. If it did not fully conform, please provide an explanation of what those gaps are so that we can better understand what the gaps are with regard to digital accessibility. This is all information that our customers will be looking for, and this is a document that our customers may request in the future when they purchase off the final contract, because products change over time, and as your product evolves, these ACRs should evolve as well. Your product should go through testing again just to make sure that none of the interfaces in your product fell out of compliance. And you'll have an updated new conformance report with anything that changes in your product over time. Okay, next slide, please. So these are the new WCAG standards for WCAG 2.1 AA, which is the new industry standard. It was bumped up last year by the Department of Justice, and Texas has adopted the new standard across the board. So we will be looking for products that conform to WCAG 2.1 AA standards. These are all the standards. They are broken out by core accessibility principles. We want our technology to be perceivable. We want it to be operable, understandable, and robust. And you can find out more information on this if you visit the WCAG site, which the link is included here at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. These are the conformance levels with the WCAG success criteria against those standards I just listed on the previous slide. So we're looking for supports. There may be partially supports or supports with exceptions. Those will require an explanation, and there is a field for that. Maybe it does not support. Provide us an explanation for that as well. Maybe your product doesn't need to have closed captioning because it's not a feature. There is no video content or audio content. Let us know that in the explanation. It may not be applicable. And it may be something that's not actually evaluated because it's at too high of a standard, which would be our level AAA. We're only looking at level AA for WCAG 2.1. Next slide, please. So moving away from product offerings, let's say you have some development services in your on your pricing list. And so we are going to be needing a vendor accessibility development services information request. This is for anything related to development services. So let's say you're doing web or mobile application for a specific type of product. Maybe you're any kind of website development, any kind of bespoke development or configuration of an existing product. maybe development through a platform, creating a bespoke application on that platform. You will complete this Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request, or VADSR. The questions there's only 6 of them. They are all written with regard to WCAG 2.1 AA standards, the same as the product offerings I just mentioned. Any of your deliverables that include supporting documentation, if you're coming in doing an assessment and providing work papers or a final report, or any type of instructional documentation, those are also required to be submitted in a WCAG 2.1 AA compliant format. Next slide, please. These are the questions on the VADSR. They go into more detail on the actual form. This is just to summarize them and help you understand what we're looking for. So on the first question, we're looking for product development and project management processes and stages of development. So again, if you're doing any kind of development project, we want to understand how you're integrating digital accessibility in these specific processes and stages of the development lifecycle. Question number 2 asks about your developer training. We want to understand how your organization trains your developers. You can list specific trainings that they've gone through or topics of training. Those are all acceptable, and that's what we're looking for on the second question. The third question asks about development and testing tools. So we want to know what kind of tools you're using, how you're going about your testing methodology. Are you using automated testing only? Are you incorporating manual testing on your product as you go through the different stages of development? Are you testing with assistive technology? Are you testing throughout the development lifecycle? This is really important. So as your developers are doing QA review and some user testing, are they testing for accessibility and usability throughout the development lifecycle? We want to know that as well. Question number 4 is asking about documentation, tracking, and resolving issues and defects. So what kind of processes do you use to document and track those defects? How do you remediate them? What kind of tools do you use for remediation or tracking? Like a lot of, for example, companies will use JIRA for defect tracking. You can list that as your response for this particular question. So those are the types of things we're looking for. Question number 5 is asking about support for noncompliance. So let's say you create some sort of bespoke application, and along the way, there's an issue or it falls out of compliance, or it's not usable by a Texan or an employee. What kind of support can you provide? Do you have an alternate way, a workaround for that particular feature that we can provide for the user? This is the kind of information we're looking for here. Some companies have a 24/7 hotline where they can provide direct support to the end user. So just complete that with as much information as possible. And then we look for sample work too. So if you can provide, let's say, a sample website page that you've created or access to some sort of web application or mobile application, we understand that that's not always possible because of proprietary code. So in the event that you cannot provide a sample of previous work that was developed, I typically will go to your company website and do a scan of your website. Because if you're developing products and web services or mobile applications for your customers, your development methodology and tools should also be applied to your own products. And that is why we'll go to the vendor's website and do a scan there just to see how well their website meets accessibility standards. Next slide, please. DIR also provides digital accessibility training for our vendors responding to our solicitations. There are 4 classes in this packet. They're all related to digital accessibility and doing business in Texas and digital accessibility requirements in our procurement process. They're each about 45 to 60 minutes. There is no charge to take these classes. And if you're interested, you can sign up on the next slide. Here is a link to go to sign up for those classes. There is a special access code that you will need to use to access that training environment. And if you have any difficulty getting set up to take those courses, you're welcome to email me at statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. And always remember to copy the procurement lead, who is Moshe Thomas, for this particular solicitation. Next slide, please. We offer additional resources on our website. Most of these are already included in your solicitation packet, but if you'd like to review these resources on our website, you can. And next slide, please. So again, my email address is statewide-accessibility@dir.texas.gov. Always copy the procurement lead, who is Moshe Thomas. Reasons to email me at this address would be for a courtesy review of your PDAA, a courtesy review of your VADSER. We do not provide courtesy reviews for any ACRs. If you have a question or need assistance signing up for vendor training, you can email us at this address as well. Always remember to copy Moshe. In the event that you forget to copy him, I will always make sure that he is looped into any response that comes from the program area. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Marie. Next slide, please. All right, let's look at mandatory submissions here. Next slide, please. Section 374 of the RFO requires you to submit all the items that are listed here. And this includes all the exhibit that we went through. Exhibit A, there will be respondents' information that you send to us. It must be signed. Make sure that it's signed, otherwise you'll be rejected right on the onset. Exhibit A1 is an exception request. And if you're not taking any any exceptions to our terms and conditions, you can always write on the face of the form that we are not taking any exceptions. So we know at least that you are not. We don't want to assume. Another form that must be submitted is Exhibit B, which is the respondent's history and experience, along with Exhibit C, which is your marketing and customer support plan. And those two forms are very important because they are scored. We need those to make sure that we score you appropriately during the evaluation phase. The other form is Exhibit D, which is your hub subcontracting form that must be downloaded from the website and submitted with your package as well. And most certainly your pricing sheet, which is Exhibit E, that must come in so we know where your prices are, if they are competitive enough to go to the next step during the evaluation. The reference form, which is Exhibit F, is also mandatory. That must be submitted by the people who are referring you, your referees. And this, the only form that comes through the email. Everything else comes through the Bitstamp BIS system. The only email that we have for this RFO is specifically for the reference forms to be sent through. And then Exhibit G, which is the response release of liability for reference, that must come in as well. EDGAR certification form and the PDA and all the forms that are associated with accessibility. There'll be I through K. And all the sign addendums, because we are going to be sending out a lot of addendums. Today, one will be going out, and in a couple of days, the Q&A will be going out. So every time you get those, make sure that you acknowledge the receipt and you send back the acknowledgement form. Next slide, please. So as per section 3.8 of the RFO, DR reserve the right to reject any and all responses received as a result of this RFO. Responses that do not comply with the mandatory submission requirements may be rejected. In addition, DR reserve the right to accept or reject in whole or in part any responses submitted and to waiver minor technicalities when it's in the best interest of the state. All right. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll come back in 10 minutes to take some of the questions that you may have. Make sure that you reference the section, the RFO section and the page number for the question that you have so we know exactly where to go or what we are talking about. And remember that all the questions that we answered today are unofficial until we put them in on ESBD, which will be happening in the few days to come. And also, you can always submit additional questions through the BIS system. So you have until Friday to do that. But for now, we are going to take a 10 minutes break and we'll be right back.
All right, are we ready to answer some questions, guys?
Yes, since we're quite a bit over on time, I'm gonna read through some of the questions. All of these will be answered on the Q&A document in the addendum that's to follow, when the Q&A period closes. So I'm gonna answer some that, seem to be asked quite a bit on here. The slides and the link to the YouTube video will be posted in an addendum prior to the Q&A document, so y'all will get that pretty quickly. Let's see. I think there's only one accessibility question on here. I'm gonna read it, and Marie, if you're still online, if you don't mind responding to that one. Can we get more guidance on completing VPAP for commercially available off-the-shelf product if we're a reseller of other manufacturer product?
Yeah, for resellers that are including products on their response, let's say, for example, an Apple product or Microsoft product, you can go to the product owner, which is Apple or Microsoft, and request ACRs from them. If you provide an ACR that connects to that's via a URL to their website, which is typically what those bigger vendors will have, the URL needs to go directly to the ACR. It cannot go to a page that lists ACRs. It needs to actually open up a PDF or an HTML of the ACR that we can review. But for resellers, you can always get those from the manufacturer. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you, Marie. Let's see. So we have security cameras on our Texan contract today. One of the categories for the solicitation is video surveillance, of which cameras would likely qualify. Would responses still be considered if we already have cameras on the Texan contract? So just for clarification, the security surveillance solicitation is the law enforcement and security surveillance solicitation. That's separate from this one. This solicitation is emergency preparedness, disaster recovery. And if cameras are within scope of the solution that you're providing for the emergency preparedness, disaster recovery, then yes, they can be proposed here. Texan services a different customer base than the cooperative contracts. The contracts that are awarded off of this solicitation are for the cooperative contract customer base, which is a bit broader than the Texan customer contract base. So again, if security cameras are within the scope, which means they fall into the emergency preparedness, disaster recovery components that you're proposing as part of the solution for this scope, then yes, you may propose them on this solicitation response. Scope section 2.1.2 services. The pricing sheet does not reflect disaster recovery IT service components. It is only for brand products and discounts of MSRP. Will there be an updated disaster recovery services IT pricing sheet? For many of the services, there's no such thing as MSRP. So this question was actually asked before we got to the section on pricing in the proposal or in the presentation. So for services, you still need to submit your services on the exhibit for the pricing. Where you do not submit services is on the bid stamp pricing form. If you're submitting services only, I'm going to say that again. If you're proposing services only, you would still complete the services tab on the pricing sheet, the Excel spreadsheet, but those do not get entered as line items into the bid stamp pricing form. That's for product only. If you're providing products and services, you need to submit products and services into the bid stamp portal and your services on the exhibit, pricing exhibit, along with the product pricing. So we can provide additional clarification in the addendum, but again, this question was asked prior to us going over that section on how to submit your offerings. Do we have to respond to some or all categories? Can we pick and choose which to respond? It's totally up to you which products and services that you can respond, as long as they're within scope of the solicitation. So again, this is emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. That is the products and services that we're looking for on this particular solicitation. Law enforcement and security surveillance, that pre-bid conference is tomorrow, and that is a different solicitation. Previously, all of those were all included into one RFO with DIR, which was the RFO number for that was 443. We have split them out on this solicitation into two different solicitations. So make sure that you're responding to the appropriate one. The next question is very similar. Can you please confirm if vendors can respond to either of the buckets? For example, can we submit responses to services only, or required to pick one of the product or technologies with its scope and submit the responses to the corresponding services only? So again, you propose what it is that your entity offers that's within the scope of the solicitation. You can propose services only, you can propose products and related services, you can propose products, related services, and services. So it depends on what you offer and how that fits within our scope as to how you submit to the response. These are master level contracts that DIR is establishing for our cooperative contract customer base. This is not a solicitation for DIR to be the primary customer for. Do we have to complete 2A and 2B if we're only bidding for DIR services? I believe that's a hub question. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by 2A and 2B.
I don't think that was a hub question. I think that was brought up during the pricing sheet.
Okay, so if this is pricing, you need to complete the services tab in the pricing exhibit. I didn't quite have quite enough information for me to figure out what you're talking about there. Again, I will address the services in the addendum, the services only, if you're providing services only, because there is a difference in related services. You cannot propose just related services, you can propose services, but we'll address that in the addendum. Can you restate how we use the reference forms? Are we to fill it out and send it to you and then contact the references? No. So the reference form has to be completed by a customer who's utilized the offerings that you proposed in the solicitation. So those are to be completed by the customer and sent directly into DIR. It is your responsibility to send that out to your customers. They fill it out. There is a portion at the top that you fill out with your vendor information. A lot of you have done business for the same customers over and over. And if you leave that blank, then we're not sure which, who asked them to do the reference. So you fill out your vendor information at the top, you email that out to the customers that you would like to complete the reference forms, and then the customers will complete the rest of the form and send it back to DIR through the dedicated email that is on the reference form. Next question is on the PDAA. Is it per product or brand, or is it for the company if we're a reseller? I think Marie's still on here, but the PDAA is for the company, and that is at a company level. Everyone is required to complete a PDAA, regardless of whether you're selling products or services. That is an assessment of your company. The VPAC gets down into the products, but the PDAA, everyone is required to submit one. A blank, one that has a 0 score, or if you're not submitting, is an automatic disqualification. You will not move further in the process. We will not ask for clarification. We will not come back to you to get that completed. So make sure that you complete the PDAA with a score and submit it with your response.
Stephanie, I'll just add to that because resellers do get confused on this. Yes, resellers are required to complete the PDAA. The responding vendor is who completes the PDAA. So resellers, yes, you will complete it. And it is designed to cover reseller questions as well.
Thank you. In line with the reference respondent form that will be sent to 3 companies or government agencies, is there a standard? Yes, there is a form. It's included with the response documents. It is a standard form, and that's the only form that we'll accept and utilize for your vendor references. 3 is the amount that we need to receive back. So if you're not confident that the companies that you send it to will actually respond back, you may want to send it out to more than 3 companies. We're checking to see if my company has a bid stamp login on the DIR. My DIR applications portal indicates that it is retiring, and the vendor should consult ESBD for response deadlines and submission instructions. Should we continue with a request for a login if we determine we are not set up? Yes, the only way to submit a response to this solicitation is through bid stamp. As I said in the presentation, the Tech for Texas portal is not live yet for cooperative contracts. If you try to request credentials there, it's not going to be activated and for you to submit a response to the instructions in the solicitation documents. And in this presentation, we're to submit through the bid stamp portal. It is not retiring until the end of FY 25 when these solicitations are all accounted for this round of procurements for cooperative contracts. Let's see. I'm not sure what this next question is asking. Can you give a little bit more specifics from Kat Jerome? Does it make sense to submit proposals for both emergency preparedness and law enforcement Texas DIR solicitations? Those are two different customer sets that utilize those contracts. So for law enforcement, it's law enforcement security surveillance. You have a different customer set than what's using your emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. Obviously, law enforcement's going to have things very specific to law enforcement, like body cams and dashboard cams, which are not a part of the emergency preparedness and disaster recovery scope at all. So if your company provides solutions to both types of solicitations and you want business from both types of customers that utilize those contracts, then you need to submit two separate solicitation responses. Those do not cross over. They do not relate to each other. Attachment 1, simple contract, page 2, appendix. Appendix C pricing index mentioned is missing from the solicitation posting. Okay, so the appendix C is actually part of a contract document set. That's not a part of the solicitation posting. That is, once you're awarded a contract, you get the contract document, and the appendix A and the appendix C are contract documents. You do not get those unless you're awarded a contract. So it's not a response document that's required for the solicitation. The sample contract is referencing contract documents, which are not applicable to a solicitation response because you do not have a contract yet. And then the second part of this question, whoops, it disappeared. Second part of that question is, what is the relation between the appendix C and attachment 1 and exhibit E, itemized pricing sheet? Those are kind of three different things. So the appendix C, again, is a contract document once your contract is awarded. Attachment 1 is the sample contract. That is a sample for you to see what the contract language includes and whether or not you want to take exceptions to any of the contract language. The contract is a template, so there's not really exceptions to take in that document. And then the exhibit E is the itemized pricing sheet. That is a response document. So that is what you complete and submit with your response for an opportunity to get a contract. I think that's all of the questions that we have. And thank you all for joining us. I think Patty's going to close us out.
Right. Yeah, just a few reminders before we close out. Remember that question that we answered today are unofficial until they are posted on ESBD in the form of an addendum. And also changes and additional information regarding these RFOs will come through as an addendum under the requisition number DIR-CPO-TMP-595, and all that will be available on ESBD as well. It is your responsibility to make sure that you monitor the ESBD website for any changes or addendas that will be posting periodically going forward. Okay, and next slide, please. Just again to remind you of some anticipated schedule of events. And then this Friday will be the deadline for submitting all the questions that you have, and it has to be submitted right on time by 5 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And if they are not, you wouldn't have any opportunity. So please take advantage of that so we can respond appropriately. And of course, the big closing date is August the 13th, which will be at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. That's when we need all the references to be in and also all the responses to this RFO to be in. And then from there, we'll start working on the evaluation and going forward with the negotiations and execution of the contract. Okay, next slide, please. All right, this is all we have today, and I'm the contact person for this RFO. Make sure that you get my contact details down. You can email me, give me a call, whatever you need. We want to make sure that you get all the information that you're going to need to respond to this, and I'll be responsive to all your questions and your comments, so we can move forward. Next slide, please. Well, thank you all for attending this this conference, and take care of yourself.